Welcome to today's video. If you or a loved one is entering retirement while living in a large, aging home that eats up cash, this episode is for you. We'll unpack why downsizing can be a lifeline, how to run the numbers, and when renting might beat buying for long-term security. To set expectations, we'll start with a quick agenda and a brief disclaimer before diving into the core ideas. Here is our roadmap for the session. First, we'll clarify the reality many retirees face. Next, we'll identify clear warning signs that it's time to move. Then, we'll run the numbers on downsizing, review a cost snapshot, and compare renting versus buying. After that, we'll prioritize timing, location, and solvency. Then walk through a practical roadmap. We'll include a couple of quick quizzes, highlight mistakes to avoid, and finish with a concise summary and next steps. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial, legal, or tax advice. Everyone's situation is unique. Before acting, consult a fiduciary financial planner, a licensed real estate professional, and a tax advisor. All numbers shown are illustrative and may vary significantly by location, market conditions, and personal circumstances. With that foundation in place, let's examine the core reality that triggers the need to downsize. Many older adults find themselves house rich but cash poor. They have substantial equity tied up in a large, aging home that requires constant spending on taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance. Meanwhile, their income may be mostly fixed and sometimes supplemented by part-time work. If you are deferring repairs or struggling with property taxes and upkeep, that's a signal. Emotionally, the family home matters, but financially, an oversized, deteriorating property can threaten solvency. Next, let's pinpoint the warning signs that it's time to act. If you are postponing roof, HVAC, or structural fixes, that's a major red flag. If property taxes consume more of your budget each year while your income remains fixed, the squeeze intensifies. If part-time work is needed just to cover core housing costs, the property is likely too expensive for your retirement stage. If your home design and neighborhood require strenuous mobility, aging in place becomes riskier. Finally, if your savings buffer is shrinking, it limits your ability to handle medical or household emergencies. The pie chart illustrates how maintenance and taxes can crowd out savings. Next, we'll quantify the downsizing calculation so you can make decisions based on clear numbers. Here is a simplified example. Suppose you sell a $350,000 home. After a typical commission and closing costs plus modest prep or staging expenses, you might net around $322,000. If you then buy a $250,000 property and incur approximately 3% in buyer closing costs, you could have around $64,500 left. If instead you rent, you may retain most of your net proceeds as liquid funds, minus deposits and moving costs. Liquidity provides a buffer for healthcare needs and income volatility. As mobility changes with age, the flexibility afforded by renting can be a decisive advantage. Now let's look at a compact cost snapshot to ground these numbers further. This table summarizes an illustrative case. After selling at $350,000 and paying commission, closing costs, and preparation expenses, the estimated net is $322,000. If you buy a $250,000 home and pay around 3% in buyer closing costs, cash remaining at move-in could be about $64,500. If you rent and pay a typical deposit and move-in costs of roughly $5,000, cash remaining could be about $317,000. These are examples only. Actual figures vary. Ongoing costs differ significantly between owning and renting. Next, we will compare renting versus buying more directly. Renting can maximize liquidity and reduce maintenance burdens, which is useful if income is tight or health needs may change. It also allows you to target highly walkable areas with convenient access to services. However, rent can increase, and you have less control over alterations. Buying provides greater control, potential cost stability depending on taxes and insurance, and the psychological comfort of ownership. But buying ties up equity and maintains ongoing upkeep responsibilities, making quick moves more difficult. Next, let's prioritize timing, location, and solvency, the three pillars that guide a wise downsizing decision. 3 priorities should drive your decision. First, timing. Moving proactively is far less stressful than waiting for a forced transition driven by repair failures or health events. Second, location. Walkability and proximity to services are crucial as driving becomes less convenient. Third, solvency. Reducing fixed costs and preserving cash improves resilience and peace of mind. With priorities in place, we'll map out a practical roadmap to execute your move. This Gantt chart lays out a 12-week plan. In weeks 1 and 2, evaluate finances, clarify needs and wants, decide whether renting or buying aligns with your goals, and research neighborhoods with strong walkability. Weeks 3 and 4 focus on decluttering, donating items, completing minor repairs, and planning staging. Weeks 5 and 6 involve selecting an agent or rental locator, arranging photography, and finalizing a pricing strategy. Weeks 7 through 9 cover listing the property, hosting showings, and negotiating offers. Weeks 10 and 11 address closing preparation, transferring utilities, and scheduling movers. Finally, Week 12 is dedicated to the move, settling in, and updating addresses and healthcare providers. Now let's break this into a simple step-by-step action plan. Here is a concise action plan. First, analyze current income and expenses to set a target monthly housing budget. Second, decide between renting and buying with a focus on liquidity, flexibility, and foreseeable health needs. Third, choose a location by prioritizing walkability and access to healthcare and groceries over marginally cheaper but remote options. Fourth, declutter aggressively to simplify the move and reduce costs. Fifth, complete only safety-critical and value-adding repairs rather than cosmetic upgrades with poor return. Sixth, protect your sale proceeds by using insured accounts and consider a ladder of safe, short-term instruments while maintaining a dedicated medical buffer. Seventh, schedule the move before mobility issues or home system failures make it urgent. Next, let's test your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: if your primary goal is maximizing cash flow and flexibility in retirement, which option often makes the most sense after selling your home? Options: A. Buy another home of similar price to maintain equity. B. Rent a smaller place to free up and protect liquidity. C. Take a large vacation and keep the current home. D. Delay moving until repairs are unavoidable. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. Rent a smaller place to free up and protect liquidity. Renting maximizes available cash after the sale, limits maintenance obligations, and allows for easier relocation as circumstances evolve. Now let's try a second question about location. Question: which factor should matter most when choosing where to live after downsizing? Options: A. The farthest location from services because it's cheaper. B. Proximity to doctors, groceries, and transit for walkability. C. A big backyard for hosting large parties. D. The highest end finishes available. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. Proximity to doctors, groceries, and transit. Walkability and access to essential services reduce reliance on driving and support independence over time. Next, let's reinforce key mistakes to avoid so you can move with confidence. Avoid postponing the move until a crisis forces fast decisions. Avoid selecting a remote area solely because it is cheaper. It may increase your dependence on driving. Avoid underestimating transaction and moving costs. They materially reduce net cash. Avoid buying a smaller home if it drains liquidity that you will need for healthcare or living expenses. Finally, avoid letting emotions override the financial reality of solvency. With these pitfalls in mind, let's summarize the playbook and your next steps. In this brief example, a 72-year-old homeowner with rising property taxes and deferred repairs decides to sell a $350,000 home. After typical selling costs, the estimated net proceeds are roughly $322,000. The owner chooses a one-bedroom rental in a walkable neighborhood near medical services and transit, pays an estimated deposit of about $5,000, invests the remaining proceeds prudently, and sets aside a dedicated medical reserve. Monthly cash flow improves, and flexibility increases. The key is having a written plan for investing in cash reserves to prevent overspending. To close, let's recap the essentials and point you to your next actions. Let's summarize. Downsizing is about protecting solvency, not giving up. Renting often maximizes liquidity and flexibility, while buying prioritizes control at the cost of tying up cash. Timing is crucial. Move before a crisis. Location matters more than ever. Choose walkability, and proximity to essential services over remote, cheaper options. Protect your proceeds with a clear reserve and investment plan. For a concrete next step, run your own numbers, shortlist 2 or 3 walkable neighborhoods, and commit to a 12-week plan to act. If this helped, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments, are you leaning toward renting or buying, and which neighborhoods are on your shortlist? Thank you for watching. If you found value here, please like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more practical retirement guidance. We'd love to hear your plan in the comments, including whether you prefer renting or buying, and which neighborhoods you are considering.